Welcome, everybody, to the SecJuiceCon 2026. I want to say a big thank you to the SecJuice team for the opportunity to present. So, let's dive right into it. But before we go deep, I'd like to tell you about a conversation I had not long ago with the Chief Information Security Officer of a mid sized financial technology company. Now, they've done everything right. Okay. Shift left was fully embedded. Static application security testing was in their pipeline. Software composition analysis was running on every PR. Their developers were trained. Threat modeling was baked into their sprint ceremonies. Their AppSec program was, by any reasonable benchmark, mature. Now, 6 weeks after their last, penetration test gave them a clean bill of health, they had a security breach. Now, what happened? A runtime manipulation of a business, logic flow that no pre-deployment scanner ever touched because it only existed when three microservices talk to each other in a very specific sequence under production load. Now, you cannot reproduce that in a staging environment. You cannot catch that in a build, at a build time. Now, that conversation stuck with me because it wasn't a failure of tools or of people or even of process. It was a failure of mental model. The model that says security is something you do before you ship and then you're done. I've spent the last several years working across fintech, headtech, insurance, cloud infrastructure, and defense across different continents, building, breaking, and advising on application security programs. And the single most consistent thing I've found is this: the organizations that get breached, despite doing all the right things, are operating on a model that is fundamentally incompatible with the speed and complexity of modern software delivery. So today, I want to introduce you to a different model, one I call, from shift left to shift everywhere, and I want to show you exactly what it looks like to put it into practice. Now, a little context before we dive in. This is who I am. All right. I'm a principal cybersecurity consultant with a couple of certifications to my belt. All right. The breadth of my experience has given me the strong, allergy to one one size fits all, security framework. Because in my experience, they almost never fit anyone. Okay. So yeah, enough about me. Let's go into it. Now, the checkpoint illusion. Okay. Shift left, move the gates. It didn't remove it. Shift left, move the gates. It didn't remove it. Now, let me explain, what that means to you in context. Now, the statistics. Let me bring this out. Great. Now, the stats you're seeing here. Okay. Says, this 68% of organizations with mature shift left programs still suffered critical breaches. Now, I want to sit with that for a moment because that number should fundamentally disturb us. These are not organizations that ignored security. They are the ones, they are not the ones skipping, threat models or deploying without scanning. These are organizations that went through the effort, spent the budget, hired the people, and did the work, and they still got breached. Now, the question that statistic forces us to ask is why? And the answer, when you dig into, incident reports, is almost always, some variations of the same thing. The breach happened somewhere, the checkpoints didn't cover. Runtime, post deployment, they didn't catch them. Now, in the intersection between systems, okay, in a configuration drift that happened 3 weeks before or after a penetration test, in a dependency that got updated silently by an automated process, in a feature flag that opened an attack vector in production that never existed in staging. Now, the checkpoint model assumes that if you validate the software before it ships, you've secured the software. But software doesn't stop changing when it ships. Configurations change, dependencies get updated, traffic patterns expose logic flaws that only appear under specific conditions, and the threat landscape shifts overnight. Now, and here's the second problem, which is arguably more urgent. Now, your pipelines, got faster. Deployment frequency has doubled and in many organizations tripled in the last 5 years. Now, if you're running CI/CD at any reasonable cadence, you are shipping multiple times a day. Now, every one of those deployment changes your attack surface, and your AppSec team is still working off the same quarterly penetration test cadence they've had since 2018. Now, that is not a people problem, that's a model problem. Now, the other point here is the gate model persists. Now, I believe it's a conceptual crux because shift left, as it has been practiced by most organizations, didn't replace the gate model. It just moved the gate earlier. Okay, you still think of security as a phase, a box you tick before you are allowed to proceed. The gates just sit earlier in the pipeline now with a different sign on it. Now, I am arguing that today rather, that we need to get rid of that gate entirely, not move it. Okay, remove it completely and replace it with something continuous. Now, the real problem now, it's not about when you shift, is that you are still shifting. Okay, it's not about when you shift, is that you are still shifting. Now, the word shift left, okay, or the word shift itself, okay, is the problem. Now, because shifting implies moving toward a destination. You shift something from one place to another, and implicit in that framing is the idea that once you have shifted far enough, once you have moved security early enough in the life cycle, you've arrived somewhere. You've solved it. Now, security is not a destination, it is a state that requires continuous maintenance. Now, the moment you treat it as something you achieve, you've already started losing. Now, let me walk you through the comparison. Okay. Now, on the left here, okay, the current states of most organization, you have security as at the checkpoint, just earlier than it used to be. You have an annual pen test, an AppSec boiled into your DevOps and SRE, speaking different languages. You measure different things. You get reviews. Okay, you track your remediation. um you know you your confidence metrics is how vulnerabilities you've closed this quarter. All right, that's your security scorecard. Now, think about what that metric actually measures. Now, it tells you how fast your team can respond to findings from the last assessment. Now, it tells you nothing about what's happening in production right now. It tells you nothing about whether a new deployment introduce a regression. It tells you nothing about whether your threat model, okay, from 6 months ago still reflects in your current architecture. It is a lagging indicator, measuring activity rather than posture. Now, looking at the right column here, okay, this is shift everywhere, and that's what I'm talking about today. Okay, security as an ambient infrastructure, continuous assurance. Okay, your AppSec, your DevOps, SRE operating as a unified discipline rather than three teams that occasionally email each other. Okay, you have your automated embedded feedback loops where you are finding surface All right, your security findings are real time, not in a report that lands 3 weeks after a pen test window closes. And you are able to measure your security as well. Your metrics, they shift fundamentally. Your main time to remediate, okay, tells you how fast you respond to live findings. Your security SLOs tells you whether your runtime security posture is within acceptable bounds. Okay. The SLO, burn rate tells you whether you are trending towards a breach before the breach happens. Now, these are leading indicators that give you time to act. Okay. Now, um, moving ahead in letting you know that security is oh yeah, I need to clear this. Yeah, to let you know that security isn't a gate. Okay, it's an ambient infrastructure. It's an ambient infrastructure. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, let me give you a definition. Shift everywhere is the embedded security. It's you embedding security intelligence, controls, and verifications across the entire software lifecycle. So from design to deployment to runtime operations, continuously and without interruption. Now let me break that down for you. Now, okay. Now, security intelligence, not just tools. Intelligence means contextualized information that informs decision. It means knowing which vulnerability matter given your specific architecture. Okay. Um, Given your specific architecture, your threat model, and business risk profile. An AI assisted triage that surfaces a critical finding is intelligence. A SaaS tool that dumps 3,000 low severity alerts into a queue is a noise. Now, the distinction matters enormously, all right, when you are operating at scale. Now, control. These are the things that prevent or detect harm. Okay. Verification, of course. I mean, this is the piece most organizations get wrong. Okay. Verification in the shift left model is periodic. You run a scan, you get a report, you verify against that report. But in the shift everywhere model, verification is continuous. Every change is validated, every deployment is policy checked, every runtime anomaly is captured and fed back upstream. Verification is not an event, it is a state. Okay. So, um, moving ahead, um, the continuous AppSec model, security at every layer, every stage, every moment. Now, um, six stages, six stages. And I want to be clear about something before I walk through them. These are not sequential, they are concurrent. Okay? They all run simultaneously in a mature shift left organization. But let me take you through the logic of each one. Now, stage one, design. Now, threat modeling as a code, where you have, couple of things in place. Now, I want to spend a moment here because this is where most organizations are still doing it wrong. Now, threat modeling as a workshop, okay, a room full of people with sticky notes happening once at the start of a project is better than nothing. But it's not shift everywhere. Now, in the model I'm describing, okay, your threat model is a versioned artifact. It lives in your repository. It updates when your architecture diagram updates. Tools like OWASP, Threat Dragon, Iris Risk, and Deciduous, okay, let you define threat as structured data that can be linted, diffed, and integrated into your CI pipeline. When an architecture decision record gets merged, your threat model gets updated automatically. That's what threat modeling as code means in practice. Now, stage two, Code, okay, SAST, secrets detection, software composition analysis. Now, I want to stress, the phrase on the slide, okay, advisory first. One of the most common mistakes I see organizations make when they instrument their pipelines is going straight to blocking. They had a SaaS scan and configure it to fail, the build on any findings, and they wonder why developers hate the security team. Advisory means, you instrument for visibility before you instrument for enforcement. Now, you let the data tell you what the real signal to noise ratio is. You tune your rules, and then when you have developer trust and tuned tooling, you move to blocking on the things that actually matter. SemGrep, SonarCube, GitLeak, Checkoff, Snake codes. These are your instruments. Do not weaponize them before you understand what they are telling. Okay, stage three, you know, um, Stage three here, okay, is S-bomb generation, which is no longer optional. In a world of supply chain attacks, it means, your CI runners are ephemeral, okay, your secrets are merged properly, your build artifact are signed, okay. S-bomb for stage three, okay. Stage four, deploy, okay, policy as a code, okay, OPA or Kaivano, IEC scan and okay, check off or Terra scan. If you are deploying infrastructure that hasn't been scanned for misconfigurations, you are deploying on no risk. Okay, admission control in Kubernetes means a non-compliance workload cannot be scheduled. Full stop. Okay, not shouldn't be, cannot be. Okay, that's the difference between a recommendation and a control. Step five, is runtime. Okay, this is the stage shift left almost entirely ignores. It's where most modern breaches actually happen. Okay, RASP, yeah. Okay, where you have runtime application self protection. This is the instrument your application, okay, so that your application uses to detect and block attack from inside the running process. Okay, and lastly, observe. Of course, this is the one that actually closes the loop. Okay, continuous feedback flowing, upstream. An organization operating at level three maturity has a security dashboard that looks a lot like site reliability dashboard. Okay, so when something fails in production, the finding doesn't just go up to a ticket queue, it goes to the next sprint. Okay, the loop never closes, and that's exactly the point because threats don't close either. Now, um, moving ahead, okay, um, we want to break the silos. Okay, now the life cycle is what? Now the two chain is how, but neither of those matters because if people who are supposed to operate this model are working in organizational silos, that prevents them from sharing information, aligning on metrics, or moving at the same speed. So the hardest, part of shift everywhere is not technical, it's organizational. Now looking at this diagram, platform engineering sits at the center. Okay, not AppSec, not the CISO, platform engineering. Why? Because shift everywhere model, okay, in that model, security is a property of the platform and platform engineering teams own the platform. Okay, now moving ahead, a word on AI. Now, I want you to spend a lot of time, observing how AI has been transforming the industry lately. Now, because it is the question I get asked more than any other right now, and I want to give you an honest answer rather than a vendor-friendly one. The wrong question is, I see organizations asking us constantly is, what does AI do to security? This question leads to a very predictable chain of events. Someone in leadership gets excited about AI powered security tooling. There is a procurement conversation. And 3 months later, the organization has an AI powered SaaS scanner and an AI powered vulnerability prioritization tool. and is still running quarterly pen tests, new tools, same broken model. And the AI has made the checkpoint prettier. Okay. It hasn't removed it. Okay, so the right question is, what does AI do for continuous AppSecOps? Okay. Now, moving ahead, where are you on the ladder? Okay, where are you on the ladder? Now, before I tell you what to do next, I want you to locate yourself, because the prescription depends entirely on the diagnosis. And the most common mistake I see organization make is applying level 3 solution to a level 1 problem. Now, level 1 reactive, okay, the diagnostic here is simple. How does the organization find out about a security problem? If the answer is when something breaks or when the report comes in, you are at level 1. Now, level 2 is shift left. If you have a SAST and SCA running in your pipeline, you conduct security reviews, threat modeling periodically. You have security gates before deployment. This feels like progress, and it is, but you are still in the checkpoint model. Your confidence is still point in time. Your runtime is still largely a blind spot. Now, the telltale sign of level 2 organization is that their AppSec, team is busy, very busy, constantly busy, because the volume of findings from pre-deployment scanning is high. Okay. In many cases, it's a sign that the model isn't working. Now, level 3, which is shift everywhere, always in control, security SLOs, automated continuous feedback. Okay. Your AppSec team is not busy in reactive sense. They are building, they are improving the platform. They are, working on the next control that will prevent an entire class of vulnerabilities rather than remediating them one by one. Now, moving ahead, start Monday. Now, I'm going to give you one move, not a roadmap, not a framework implementation plan. One concrete thing you can start next coming week, because the most common reason organizations don't move is lack of knowledge. And it's a decision paralysis in the face of a problem that looks too large to start. Now, if you are in level 1, okay, you are reactive, okay, and it's just quite interesting how these things come to be. Okay, now, these are the 3 starting points. Okay, pick your single highest risk service. Okay, the one that handles payments or PII or authentication. Add SAST and SCAR and secret detection to the CI pipeline this week. Don't set them to block, set them to inform. Okay, so one move, okay, not culturally, formally, okay, organizationally, embed an AppSec engineer into your platform engineering team, not as a reviewer, as a builder. Okay, their job is to implement the security controls that AppSec has defined directly into the platform. Okay, and so, in closing, I want to close with a question that I think should be the test for every security program. Not are we compliant, not did we pass the pen test, not how many vulnerabilities did we disclose this quarter. The question is, if someone on your team tried to deploy a critical vulnerability to production at 2 a.m. in the morning on a Sunday, would your system catch it automatically without a human being woken up? If the answer is yes, you are shifting everywhere. If the answer is it depends or probably or we'd have to check, you still have work to do. Okay. The organizations that will win on security in the next 5 years are not the ones with the most scanners or the large AppSec headcounts or the most impressive compliance certificates. All right. They are the ones that made security deeply embedded in how they build and operate software that's stopping. Okay. It will break. Everything else. Now, that is shift everywhere. That is continuous AppSec engineering. And I hope this session has given you something concrete to take back, whether that's a mental model, a framework, or just one move you are going to make this week. Thank you very much, and all the best.